within our work on COVID, we have supported both the EU and the Council of Europe in terms of the analysis and summaries of the main findings of the questionnaires on COVID and its impact on youth sector. So I give the floor now to Adina to present some of the findings of the survey that was done by the Joint Council on Youth.
Thank you, Lana. And yeah, happy to present a bit a survey that the Joint Council on Youth has circulated. So I have the Joint Council on Youth on working on a questionnaire that was circulated in July and August, mainly to youth NGOs. And we've got around 50 answers from the NGOs that were both from local, regional, national, and also international NGOs. But basically, yeah, no matter where you'd be working, the struggle that you had as an organization was mainly the same. We're trying to understand a bit what's the state of play. So to understand what was the influence of the pandemic on the youth organizations, on their regular work, as most of them were running youth clubs and youth centers. Also to understand if that affected a bit the projects and the budget they had for those projects, as well as to map out the practices that they were using during the pandemic, and to look at the digital tools, because we do speak a lot of those digital tools that were needed, so much needed in this context. And also at the support, because we were expecting to see a lot of measures that were taken both by governmental agencies and also maybe even by private donors in supporting the youth sector. Definitely the conclusions were not a set that would surprise us, because what all the organizations were saying, no matter if they were local or international, was that definitely the pandemic had a negative impact on what they were doing. Most of these organizations had projects that were funded by the European organizations or by international organizations, so they had delays in implementing these projects. Also, their outreach and their visibility decreased because they could not go outside, approach other young people, bring them to their activities. They didn't have the physical spaces anymore where to meet. Also, of course, the lack of financial support, and that affected them a lot. There were plenty of youth workers who were like jobless, or their salaries were reduced. They had to quit paying for the rent for the spaces that they had for the youth activities, so that affected them a lot. And also for the ones that were running volunteering projects, that was mainly the case of the ones that were granted through Erasmus+, that had a huge impact, because they had to close these projects or to suspend them, but they had no clue when they would start them again. And the survey also came with a set of messages for the European institutions, because, okay, we are here, we understand what's the struggle, we know what's the state of play, so what to do next. And of course that they want to grant access to digital tools, because we do speak of tools, but then do we have the competencies and also the equipment to run these tools? And that was one of their main concerns. It was a lot on these mobility activities, because most of the European granted projects included learning mobility activities, and they don't know how and where to move them. So they're asking a bit of flexibility from the European institutions to understand that they could use the budget that it was allocated for mobility activities for other activities in the organization. Also to create an emergency line, so where youth organizations could turn to and get some support, special grants to tackle the pandemic situations, and also assistance to the youth work professional that it's working on contract basis in the organizations. Also, especially when it comes to the European Youth Foundation, they also asked for flexibility, and also when it comes to the projects that the EYF is normally funding, and also to the special projects, to the special calls dedicated to the pandemic. And also they were asking for digital resources to improve communication. So again, we are going back to the need, but there's a lot of answers that we're still expecting. including toolkits that they could use for free, and yeah, some guidance on how to use the tools. From the survey, we mainly have 3 clear messages: that there's a lot of need for support locally and regionally. Again, looking at the coverage, we have organizations from the Council of Europe, member states. So in most of the states, it was really not that much support from the governmental side to continue running the youth activities. Also, we do speak a lot of the digital gap. It's already some years, but now during the pandemic, that was acute. So what do we do with this digital gap? We cannot stop to discussing about it and doing nothing. And the third message would also go back to the youth NGOs, because it seems that if the pandemic had a great impact on the activities, and there's also the question about the sustainability. So there's a lot of space to improve, and of course the biggest need would be to support a bit this sustainability, because that would just get us back to young people, and then they wouldn't know where to ask for support if these youth NGOs are not there. And that's the main conclusion. Yeah, we do have great research projects going on. As we see, we run research projects that would get us to the same messages and also to the same conclusions. And the main conclusion is that we should start acting and use the research outcomes that we collected so far to go back to policy and projects that would respond to the youth needs and interests. Thank you.